I didn't realize personally how expansive his sci-fi filmography is. Is Steven Spielberg a sci-fi director who then also just makes other stuff?
Audiences want to see these kind of sights that they could never seen before. They could only dream of previously. So he's definitely an important figure in that regard.
You're listening to Second Cut. This is the podcast where we talk about topics in film theory, criticism, history, etc. Because what else are we going to do with our time? I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who Dawson Leary would be very disappointed in.
I'm Sam, and I'm the one who likes to make mountains out of his mashed potatoes.
I'm Kieran. I'm the one who slowly but surely is drawing my plans against you.
Great. Yeah, we got very close to 3 Alien movies. Maybe I should have done E.T. But Disclosure Day is coming out, so we're doing Steven Spielberg's sci-fi movies, and just the sci-fi because he has way more movies that exist.
Yeah, and because I was initially going like, have we done Spielberg? And we haven't actually done a Spielberg episode in nearly 5.5 years or something along those lines. So it's like, okay, let's do something, and then the suggestion, just do the sci-fi because it's too big otherwise. We've done bits and pieces, but we haven't done a specific Spielberg look in. So guess what we're doing?
Yes,
Spielberg.
Yep. And I guess, I don't know, we'll do another Spielberg one sometime. But yeah, I didn't realize personally how expansive his sci-fi filmography is. If you had really made me think about it, I might have gone, oh, wow, yeah, no, he's done a lot of it. But, I asked you guys before the show, is Steven Spielberg a sci-fi director who then also just makes other stuff? It kind of seems that way.
I mean, it's kind of interesting that two of the most prominent kind of directors in the new Hollywood era, ends up basically kind of inventing the modern idea of kind of sci-fi or kind of commercial sci-fi at the very least. There's just it was something in the air in the late 70s. Some people wanted to see. Now. Kind of all these special effects breakthroughs. And ideas that you can make films of this scale, for a mass audience, and that the audiences wanted to see these kind of sights that they could never seen before. They could only dream of previously. So he's definitely an important figure in that regard.
I think Spielberg just in general is a weird one that kind of. It's only in recent years, I think, that people are starting to go, no, he is one of the greats. And I think that's because he essentially, I remember I watched for this, talk about AI, Mark Kermode, literally gave Spielberg an apology because he was like, I gave AI shtick and I was wrong about it years later. And he's like, you're only the second critic in history to apologize to me. This was 10 years ago. But he was essentially going, because he was talking about AI in relation to Kubrick and Spielberg, he's like, I liked the cold calculating stuff of Spielberg, of Kubrick, which I really like, and the kind of schmaltzy sort of heartstringy stuff of Spielberg I'm a little bit snobbish about. And I think because Spielberg likes to do kind of your heartwarming moments, not in all of the things, obviously, there's some stuff that's really dark. I mean, it's Spielberg's fault the US has the censorship rating system that it does. But because he adds those in, I think people have just gone, he's just like a popcorn director. He just does the heartwarming thing. He can't do serious. Yeah. When that is completely wrong.
I think because the majority of his work is kind of aimed at a wide family audience, and he does kind of wonder and kind of childlike imagination so well. People think that's all he does, and all his films are very strongly tied to the idea of the family unit, whatever shape that is, it's like it's about these kind of families going through kind of trials and tribulations, and trying to get out, the other side, still together. But he is versatile, and I think he's had a go at pretty much everything over the years. I mean, it's not done an outright horror, but he's definitely got the horror scenes in his filmography.
I would argue, if Jaws isn't classed as horror, I don't know what is.
No, it's got horror elements, but but I'd say it's more of a kind of I don't know, thriller adventure kind of film. Maybe it's like the first half is like suspense thriller, and the second half's like a adventure. And you know, he's obviously he ticked the music off his bucket list. After a long time with West Side Story. I think the only other one he's not outdone properly, though. Again, there's scenes with these tropes in. He's not done a western, even though he's a big fan of westerns, and he said that may be the other thing he'll try and do before he does retire, at some point.
Yeah, he needs to do a proper good old western. He's got pretty much everything else. I mean, Tintin gets you animation.
DreamWorks, the studio.
He's done pretty much everything. I mean, you look at his filmography. Firelight, which is the kind of mostly lost film now, did at the age of 17. We kind of don't count that. The first real professional kind of feature-length thing he did was Jewel, which is a straight-up thriller. Sugarland Express, kind of crime drama, horror for Jaws. He's done many historicals. Now in the last sort of, he did his kind of almost child-friendly era in the 80s to a certain extent. And then kind of the 90s, he went, okay, from then on, we're going to go, like, half our stuff is going to be, like, these big historical drama kind of things, where it's like, come on, it's like, it's either that or your big popcorn entertainment. So it's like, I'm not quite sure which one I actually quite like.
I like how he does some of these films back-to-back, and they're usually complete contrasts, just because, literally editing... It was like editing Jurassic Park just to give him some therapy after filming Schindler's List, basically. He was so emotionally drained. It's like, no, I just need to just lose myself a bit and just think, focus on something purely technical for a while, and not try and get too emotionally kind of traumatized, my next projects.
Yeah. I mean, I think he did the same things for like Catch Me If You Can, of the Terminal. He'd come off doing he'd done Amistad, Saving Private Ryan, AI, which is obviously an homage to his best friend, and Minority Report, which isn't the nicest, happiest film in the world either. And it's like, okay, we'll do Catch Me If You Can, and we'll do The Terminal a couple of years later, because like The Terminal still has possibly one of my favourite John Williams themes of all time. Yeah. It's so good and light and catchy. I also think that Spielberg possibly is the only filmmaker to make a close-up cutaway, like just common sort of pop culture knowledge, just of the water shaking in Jurassic Park. Like, many directors go their entire like Oscar-winning careers without a single frame being etched in the public consciousness. And Spielberg literally just shoots a flipping plastic cup of water shaking slightly, and everybody knows what it is. Like, what is this? It's ridiculous.
Well, I think it's the mix of he makes entertaining movies that like are a core part of younger people's childhoods. Even his more adult movies, like if you want to say, well, Indiana Jones isn't like a kid's movie. It's something that kids watch and enjoy. And for me, he's kind of like if George Lucas kept making movies. Like, he's a businessman, he's an entertainer, he defines generations of film. And like the things about him that are, kind of generic or cliche, it's because everybody's, not copying from him, but everybody's watching him. And he's kind of defining the industry in a Hollywood standard style kind of way.
Like, it's not just the one generation that's grown up on him; it's multiple generations now, because he's just been so his career's just been so long, and his work's so prolific. You could have, people who grew up in the 70s and 80s, they kind of they fell in love with him when they saw Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then as they grew up, they got to see his more adult films like Saving Private Ryan, and then like another generation, like yours, my generation, Jacob, grew up on Jurassic Park and things like Hook, if that was your kind of thing. and then again, he kept making things, making stuff that we could appreciate as adults as well. And as we've already mentioned, just weaving in and out of all these different kinds of genres as well. Just you could. He's like an auteur director with like a recognizable stylistic kind of signature, but equally, you know, there's as many differences throughout his filmography as there are similarities, which kind of makes kind of interesting.
And I think me and Sam have mentioned this before. I mean, the one Spielberg film I haven't seen is The Fabelmans, and I just haven't got round to it yet. But I'm one out of 27, something like that. I think it's
31, and there's 3 I haven't seen. I've not seen.
Which ones have you not seen?
Sugarland Express, Always, or Munich. And I'm planning to see them all over the next couple of weeks. So I could say once I've seen his latest, then I'm up to date on Spielberg.
Yeah, but I mean, so I've seen all of them except Fabelmans, which came out a couple of years ago, and genuinely, I think 1941, which is hit and miss. Yeah. There are some good ideas, and the rest isn't pulled off. But that's like the weakest Spielberg movie he's ever done. And if a movie which is entertaining but doesn't pull stuff off is the worst movie in over 50, 55 years of feature filmmaking, if that's the worst you've got, that is an impressive record.
For me, the two that don't work are 1941 and his version of the BFG. And the latter is very much because I'm very strongly attached to the Roald Dahl book and the animated version, from the 80s. And that was a crushing disappointment for me. Really, I couldn't quite put a finger on anything that was grievously wrong with it, but it felt off to me. Just something wasn't quite connecting. His take on that material.
It's not that it's bad. You just don't.
Yeah. And that's what I just don't find funny. Personally, I see what he's going for, but just didn't really connect with me.
Yeah. And when we look at his sci-fi more specifically, I mean, they're all award nominees, if not winners. Close Encounters, we'll get to its achievements. E.T. won 4 Oscars. Jurassic Park won for sound effects, editing, and visual effects. AI was nominated for Best Original Score and Visual Effects. Minority Report got an Oscar nom for Best Sound Editing and won several Saturn Awards, apparently. War of the Worlds was nominated for Best Sound Editing, Mixing, Visual Effects, and Ready Player One was nominated for Visual Effects. So, yeah, I mean, even when he's at, his weakest there, he is getting to the Oscars. And really just the weakest for me being Ready Player One is because I hate the source material and the entire idea.
I think he probably does the best job he can do with that kind of source material. Really, at least he makes it kind of generally entertaining, kind of watchable. But anyone could have done it. Anyone could have done it, really. I wouldn't say that one screamed Spielberg particularly. It's just, I think that
Colin Trevorrow
definitely seems like a job, a direct for hire kind of job, one of the rare ones in his filmography.
Although apparently he kind of read the book and went, I want to do this. So, I think that's because essentially the entire book is just, I love Spielberg. Essentially. Yeah. It's just, I love the 80s.
Spielberg was an adult in the 80s.
Yeah. That's all it is. And with Ready Player One, I mean, there are issues with it. Ready Player, the book is okay. There are things I like, there are things I dislike. The Ready Player 2 is god-awful. Do not read it. It is a trash fire, dumpster fire of anything. And this is compared to the first one, which has its pros and has its cons. At least with the Spielberg film, it's still got its issues, but by God, can Spielberg direct an action sequence? I don't care. The first race sequence is just, it's so well done. And you do have a beautifully nerdy 30 seconds of Iron Giant and Gundam versus Mechagodzilla, and I don't care who it is. Thank you, Spielberg, for making that happen. Because
on its kind of base level pleasures, it's good, but I do object to the fact that the Iron Giant, famously a character who said "I am not a gun," all of a sudden is a gun for an action scene. But it's a cool site. And they also the one permitted F-bomb when Chucky gets thrown at a guy's face. Chucky.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so good.
I found an interview from 2000, or not interview, so this guy from chud.com was doing press for some reason. The early 2000s internet is fascinating. But yeah, in 2005... You can still see
Scott C. Derrickson reviews and stuff like that.
Yeah. This guy, he writes about how Tom Cruise likes his shirt that he's wearing. And then basically it's like a press interview at chud.com. So... what I get out of that, I think, is Spielberg talks about science fiction suggesting cool ways of exploring the universe. And so that's how he kind of approaches it. And I'll talk a little bit more about an interview he did with Reuters about AI more recently. But yeah, I mean, what you talked about, Sam, with the way he brings things into the domestic sphere, like what separates us from Star Wars or Alien is, those are the important people going through things, and Spielberg focuses more on the family and the personal, and he makes, even a somewhat expansive story just a little bit smaller by having so much about the family unit, really making it personal to all of us.
Yeah.
Which may be schmaltzy and sentimental and blah, blah, blah. It's kind of a trick, but it's effective. And, what does that make it as a technique when you're just intentionally tugging on heartstrings? We saw The Mandalorian. It had some of that where it's manipulating you with sadness and a baby.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've read an interview before where he's talked about what attracts him to a good script. Because generally speaking, he's not writing his own scripts. He's done a few, or he's co-written, or he's polished a few. But The Fabelmans aside,
is it written by David Coe? Yeah. Yes, in which case he'll probably direct it.
Yeah, so but generally, his scripts are brought to him, or he seeks them out, and I said, again, what generally attracts him to a script is that kind of personal connection. It's stories about ordinary people in extraordinary kind of circumstances, and he wants. He's not interested in superheroes, unless you consider Indy like a superhero. But yeah, generally it's boots on the ground, ordinary people, going through kind of out of the ordinary kind of things, and he's always looking for ways to kind of bring it back down to earth and make sure that the average person watching his movies can always relate to what the character's going through.
Which is why he turned down Spider-Man.
Because you can't relate to Spider-Man?
Well, no, he said he doesn't like to do superheroes. He likes to do the kind of the...
If he was going to pick a superhero film, though, probably Spider-Man would be the one. Because the good thing about Spider-Man is, he's a superhero, but he's poor as well. He's got to pay his rent and work shitty part-time job.
He's just your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man,
Spielberg would have been a great Spider-Man director.
So.
Yeah, he would. But at the same time, we got Sam Raimi, so...
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, or he would fit Superman too if you were trying to get him fork over enough money that he directs it in the early 2000s.
Don't need to change the score then. Still done by John Williams, and just slap it on and it goes.
Yep.
Don't think about anything.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of John Williams, let's get into the specific Spielberg films we're covering.
Yeah. So. Close Encounters of the Third Kind is a 1977 film, so made on the back of Jaws, although the script was out there before Jaws was made. I think he was planning to make it beforehand, but that project kind of took over his time and ends up being the quicker one to get off the ground, even though that was a famously troubled and delayed production. So I've been reading this fairly recent book, The Last Kings of Hollywood, about Coppola, Spielberg, and Lucas, and their kind of 70s, 80s heyday, essentially. And I've just found this kind of bit about kind of the genesis of Close Encounters and kind of how it kind of got off the ground. So he sold a pitch to Columbia back in '73 for a sort of larger-scale revisiting of his teenage Firelight. Spielberg mistrusted authority. He struggled to write any story with a man in uniform as the hero, and he conceived the project as a cynical conspiracy thriller about governmental cover-ups of UFOs. Columbia had paid Paul Schrader, whose twitchy paranoia and sweaty Calvinist anxiety seemed a perfect match, $35,000 for the first draft of the screenplay. When he sat down to read Schrader's work, with every new page he turned, his heart sank deeper into his chest. He'd asked for a tale of tension and thrilling set pieces, but Schrader had written a religious allegory with barely any spaceships to be seen, a bleak Bressonian character piece about a government agent who investigates and debunks UFO sightings, only to be turned through an almost literal road to Damascus revelation into a believer. He ditched Stephen's title, Watch the Skies, and renamed the story Kingdom Come. So I had a difficult discussion with Schrader. I said, "Yeah, this isn't really for me." He said he wants it. He found Schrader's draft joyless, self-indulgent, and embarrassing. He wants a film grounded in everyday, ordinary life, with blue-collar everyman as the hero. And Schrader responded with, "I refuse to write a story about the first man to leave our solar system with the sole goal of setting up a McDonald's."
What's this? Self-indulgent and aggrandizing. Surely that's more up Coppola Street then.
So basically, Spielberg, on back that...
Is that not the movie I watched, except just with a normal guy? Because it keeps all of the crazy conspiracy religious stuff.
It does.
And it just makes it Richard Dreyfuss as a suburban dad.
Yeah, he wants it more grounded and relatable. So basically, he ends up rewriting more or less the whole of Schrader's screenplay, keeping out some of the basic pop beats, but essentially doing it again from scratch, which he did in Coppola's office as production company.
He did it at Zoetrope?
I believe he did, yes. Doesn't specify, but if he's saying it's at Coppola's office, sick. I presume it was Zoetrope, yeah. And for this reason, you'll see the screenplay is now credited to Spielberg. Apparently, he wanted to keep Schrader on, but Schrader said, "Nah, you've made it your thing now. I don't want the credits anymore. You have it." So just all right. I'll put my name on it. Even though it was a joint effort. While kind of researching the screenplay, basically dug into all these kind of accounts about UFOs, supposed UFO sightings, and eyewitness accounts from over the decades. I mean, he was a bit of a nut for that kind of stuff anyway. He described himself as an agnostic about alien invasions, but he always kind of he hopes kind of that there was some truth to it, and kind of theorized that there are too many coincidences in these accounts for it to all be kind of made up or entirely delusional. So he picks out stories of 1955. A family in Kentucky claims aliens surrounded their farm and took them hostage, while they dissected and experimented on their livestock. Then there was a family driving on US Route 3 by night, and humanoid beings flying in rotating pancake-shaped craft flew above them. And then 1966, unidentified flying objects hovering over swamps in Michigan are observed by several dozen people, including police officers. And in one of the kind of featurettes on the Blu-ray I watched today, he was saying it's interesting how you get so many kind of cops and kind of military people giving these accounts over the years, because you think generally kind of people in uniform, people who work for the government, the kind of at the time, this also pre-Watergate, they were kind of seen as like relatively trustworthy kind of figures, and kind of they wouldn't lie to us. Why would they have a reason to lie to us? But then Watergate happened, and it kind of shifted his perspective. He said, "All right, now we've got a reason for the government to kind of be lying to us, so I can maybe emphasise this kind of paranoid, kind of slightly off-kilter kind of feeling to the whole story." I mean, there's a great line that Richard Dreyfuss, I think, says. later in the film, where it gets, they get to the end, with all the government people and they're about to meet the aliens, but they're still trying to throw the ordinary people off the scent, basically. The kind of having big arguments about what's true, what isn't, what they can do. And he says to them, "You can't fool us by agreeing with us." Just kind of this kind of just weird thing to kind of get your head around. It's like the most suspicious thing is like if these figures of authority, all of a sudden, kind of completely buy what you say, all your bizarre claims. So I think it really kind of digs into that. So essentially, it's the story of, as Jake says, a family man, Richard Dreyfuss, as Roy Neary, and kind of him and the other residents of his small Indiana town come into contact with aliens with an unknown purpose. Electrical powered kind of appliances, vehicles, and objects throughout the town start behaving erratically. A few people go missing. And a lot of people who had direct contact with the spaceships as they flew by, all of a sudden seem to be having visions about vivid visions about some sort of mountainous structure. And once you know it, it's Devil's Tower in Wyoming. So they all make their way over there, and just in time to witness the government agents and scientists attempting to communicate with the otherworldly visitors through a very distinct 5-note piece of music. Which apparently...
By the way, Sam, this takes place in the same town Garfield lives in.
Oh, right. That's nice. So apparently the music was a key kind of aspect, like the early development of this. Normally Spielberg would deliver his film to John Williams, who would then score to it, but they did the other way around for this because he wanted just something to kind of get him in the right headspace, the right atmosphere on set, and particularly obviously getting that 5-note kind of sequence right, for that scene, so they could play it live. Yeah. So basically, John Williams kind of invited Spielberg around to his house, and for an entire day played him all the 5 notes kind of combinations he could think of until they, hundreds of them, until they came up with like the one that sounded right to both of them, basically. Yeah, so this was the third highest grossing movie of 1977, after Star Wars, of course, and more bizarrely, Smokey and the Bandit.
Oh my!
Which I've never seen. I never knew it was like the second biggest movie of 1977.
Burt Reynolds is huge.
Yeah, so it made 100.
There are some things that you just look at and go, "This is weird." Yeah. Like, how is it this big?
So it didn't quite do Star Wars numbers, but what does? It didn't do bad though. 116 million from a 20 million budget, and apparently Lucas and Spielberg made a gentleman's agreement, each guessing that the other's sci-fi film would outgross the other, and basically. Their agreement was, obviously, that the prize was pride, obviously, whoever won out. But they each got 2% of the 2.5% of the profits from each other's movies at the box office.
So the other prize is money.
So 2.5% of the box office. So 2.5% of the box office gross for the original Star Wars actually went to Spielberg.
Yes,
What?
And I think 1% went to Alec Guinness. I think that was his deal. He didn't take a paycheck. He took a percentage gross. It was like 1% or something. And
Lucas took the merchandising.
And Alec Guinness was thinking, this might get me a few thousands, but he became a millionaire on the back of it. So they're obviously very much kind of still best mates, and supporting each other's careers where possible, and helping each other out, and just bigging each other up generally. It was a much more straightforward production than Jaws, though, because I think, as Spielberg said in an interview, he says, well, this time at least the sets weren't kind of rolling. As I was trying to fill them, and my cast and crew weren't throwing up, and we weren't getting hit by storms every other day. So. I think this is very much an example of kind of what Spielberg does well in terms of. Obviously, it's a decent budget, especially for the time, but it's not an endless budget as well. So he's got to use, he's got to be careful about where he puts the money and kind of what he puts on screen, basically. And when he can't quite pull off exactly what he wants to put on screen, then he'll cheat, or he'll do something clever to get around it. I mean, don't know about you guys, but for me, the most effective scene and kind of low-key creepy scene is the scene of Barry being abducted, the little kids, running around the house, the lights going off and stuff. And it's all done with lighting and sound, basically, which are orange lights and kind of sound effects and objects vibrating,
If you did it now, you'd have him running around with his arms out like this, like in weapons. But they didn't know about that.
And apparently, the kids, he's like a three.
Yeah,
he's
a very little kid.
Never been in a film before, and Spielberg basically just bribed him. That's how he did it. Go for actions. He just kept giving them toys and kept waving them just off camera, just get the right reaction. And then a scene where he wants a more kind of perplexed, kind of confused expression. He got a guy to come on set wearing gorilla suits and kind of stand just off camera, kind of doing like a dance, and the kids kind of looking confused. And then Spielberg kind of whispered to him, saying, "Take the head off, take the head off." He took the head off, and it was one of the makeup guys that he'd been working with the kid every day on set. So he just said to him like a friendly, recognisable face, so he smiled when he saw him. So little tricks like that. Yeah.
I will say on that, I had a bit when I was working at the summer camp where it was the final week, and one of the filmmaking groups, it just ended up being two 7-year-old French kids, a kid who was maybe 11, 12. I can't remember where he's from. He might have been British. I cannot remember for the life of me. But obviously he's trying to get something, and the kids are just kind of there for having a laugh. And kind of went along with it as much as possible, but he wanted a shot of the two kids kind of running around, and trying to explain to two 7-year-old French kids how to do that is almost impossible. So at that warning, I just went up to one of the kids and went tag and ran off. And that kid chased and eventually went up to the other one, tag, and eventually got him running around enough, backed out a shot, and I could see out that this other kid was filming like that. I just went, "Is that what you want?" And he was like, "Yeah, that'll do, thank you." I'm like, you got to be creative sometimes.
I mean, I think people in the industry, they often kind of hire Spielberg as like the director you want, working with kids, on camera to get a kind of a believable kind of naturalistic kind of reaction from them, and he communicates with them on that level, and apparently he doesn't patronise, but kind of explains kind of what's going on and what they're trying to do, but equally knows kind of how to get the reaction you want from kids, and again we'll use kind of cheap little tricks sometimes, but it kind of works, and we just kind of relates to them on that level. And when he was casting for the lead in this for Roy Neary in this. Again, originally he was going for an actor like Steve McQueen, which I think would have been a completely different and wrong vibe for this, really. Apparently, even after working with him on Jaws, maybe because he just worked with him on Jaws, he wasn't considering Dreyfuss, but Dreyfuss kind of came to him and said, "Look, you want a big kid for this? I'm a big kid, you need that wonder." And Richard Spielberg came around and said, yeah, you're right. And he literally is. He's a man-child in this. He's just... he was very playful and kind of funny with his own children. But just when he's focused on something, he's like hyper-focused and fixated on it like a child is, and I think gets that vibe just right. And I think you don't get kind of someone who's better at just being kind of warm and relatable, like, ground and down to earth as Dreyfuss, but you can also do really manic and kind of slightly unhinged as well, which is kind of appropriate, when you're not quite sure to what extent this character is just losing it, and he's just going to drive everything, everything to destruction. I mean, one of Spielberg's common themes, it's family. It's about families and kind of what they go through and how they break up, and whether your dad's kind of drinking too much, or he's run off with another woman, or he's gone and never come back, or he's been driven mad because he thinks he's seen aliens and he's trying to find them. It's the same end result, really. The family kind of suffers at the end of that, and struggles to get through that. I think Teri Garr's really good as well, as his wife. That's it's a small kind of supporting role for her, but I think she's always good value for money in this. And she's got kind of one of the funniest lines in this, when he kind of grabs them all and takes them out, into the in the middle of the night, to try and spot the spaceships again. Which apparently is based on an incident where Spielberg's dad did the same thing to him, though he kind of took him picked him up and took him out in the middle of the night to watch a meteor shower, that he knew was on its way. But yeah, when they get out to the roads and they're not there, and he's trying to describe what he saw, and he goes, it was like an ice cream cone. And Teri Garr, the wife replies with, "What flavour?" Which is just that nice little kind of moments of kind of lightness. I think kind of that needs. You also obviously have Francois Truffaut in this as the main kind of expert on the whole thing. You always got to bring in an expert, knows everything, kind of knows what they have to do. And it's kind of interesting that he goes for Truffaut, I guess one of his kind of filmmaking heroes, not known as an actor, although he had acted in small roles in some of his own films. But I think he'd seen him kind of in like one of his appearances, and kind of thought, yeah, I can kind of see him filling out this role, and kind of having him kind of being like the foreigner coming in and giving his expertise might add something to it all.
I will now ask the question: have we actually done a Truffaut episode?
No, we haven't. Yeah, definitely add to the list. Yeah.
Okay.
What's interesting is, Sam, you said he's the expert. I thought of him as like he's the French guy. That's his role. But what's interesting about that is like you're getting translation both from the expert and then also from the aliens, because they're kind of trying to decode like their music language or whatever by the end. So that's a fun little bit.
But yeah, he's there at the start, isn't he? He's the expert, kind of flies in to kind of that desert scene and finds all these planes have dropped out of nowhere, Interestingly, I guess as well, Bob Balaban, who's obviously the cartographer who can speak French, who ends up translating for Truffaut. He was vaguely known in Hollywood as this character actor who could do passable French, and he got called in for an audition, and they asked him, "So, how good is your French?" And he kind of just came up with like a sentence in French, and they said, "Great, yeah, you got the job." But what he said in French was, "My French isn't really that good. I can get by." But they presumed he was fluent, so they never did any follow-up questions.
I think that guy's in Seinfeld.
Yeah, that opening scene.
That's the translator guy.
Yeah. He's been in quite a few kind of films. It's normally nerdy, kind of eccentric kind of characters. It's kind of what he specialises in. He's in quite a few Wes Anderson films as well. But yeah, the opening scene where they're examining all these old sort of World War II era planes, they've dropped out of nowhere, disappeared years earlier, and then but the pilots are nowhere to be found. And it turns out later on that the aliens have been taking these people of interest over the years, apparently not doing anything untoward with them, just taking them in their spaceship, and then they come back the same age as they were when they went in. So
yeah. I'll be honest. I've never understood the alien sort of intention thing. What is happening? I don't know if it's just like, this is a thing that happens, they are there, or if there's some...
I like that they're vague, but they're set up, kind of the film language tells us they're sinister, because that's what we've been led to kind of expect from that flying saucer over the years, But then, in the end, turns out, no, they're coming in peace. They just want to find a way to communicate with us, and I think it ends on like a message of kind of optimism, I suppose. Kind of, it's like a bit of an ellipsis at the end, but that's why... There's several versions of this film, and I would say don't watch the special edition, because the studio forced Spielberg to come back and shoot an extra scene where he went inside the spaceship, and we don't need to see that. Just keep it a mystery.
No, I wish I'd watched that.
That always annoyed me. Just I think it's perfect. Just leaving it as just a question mark. Just.
Is that the inside of the spaceship that's then reused years later as the police building in Blade Runner?
Yeah. I'm pleased they got use out the set of it eventually, but no, they don't need that scene in this version.
And the better use of it as well.
This film had kind of a few kind of interesting firsts. Apparently, the meeting point for the aliens, behind Devil's Peak, the big stadium kind of structure. That was apparently the largest interior set ever built in Hollywood. And apparently the set designer was really excited for Truffaut, this great French director, to kind of walk on set and be wowed by it. And he was completely nonplussed because apparently he was much more impressed by like more kind of intimate kind of sets, the kind of films he was used to making. You know, there's like a motel sets they use later on, you know, where whereas the mum of Barry, you know, she's watching like the TV coverage of Devil's Peak, and he was much more impressed by the motel sets, you know, than he was by this massive stadium thing. They tried some early tests for CG imagery. Apparently, basically you create like something entirely inside a computer, and we're going to use it, but it didn't look quite up to standard for Spielberg, so they scrapped it. So it would take a few more years for true CG to come in. And they also they used for the first time computer programmed camera, like a camera arm, you know, to accurately kind of program in kind of camera moves, you know, between shots, which made it easier for them to add in special effects later and kind of keep consistent. And said special effects were also for the first time printed on 70mm film. Normally, with special effects in that era, they'd be on a lower kind of resolution kind of film and then put in, and then some canny audience members would say, "Oh, you always know when the special effects going to happen because the kind of it always goes a bit fuzzy, you know, between shots, you know, because it's a different kind of grade of film, basically."
Is that the same thing when in old westerns you can always tell when there's about to be a transition because it very subtly changes quality or colouring or something like that?
Yes, they've found a way to kind of print kind of their special effects directly onto the same film stock they'll use for the rest of the film, so it's kind of more kind of seamless. They got Douglas Trumbull on board, who famously did the spaceships for 2001, so got him in to do the spaceships for this as well. And the designer...
Doug Trumbull has done the special effects for pretty much everything.
Yeah, but basically 70s and 80s, 60s, 70s and 80s, if it was a spaceship on screen, you probably would have done it, yeah. And the ships themselves were partly inspired by some factory buildings Spielberg had seen when he was on holiday in India. He was kind of really interested by kind of the pipes and the shapes kind of on the outskirts of these tanks. But then he kind of thought, I need to make this really striking. And then he thought about how like the San Diego skyline looks at night, you know, like the glittering kind of lights of homes and businesses. So he thought, I'll put those on the outside of my spaceships. That'll make it look interesting. And that can makes it very much so when you do get a good look at the spaceships, they can definitely become more beautiful and they are kind of sinister. And I think even before the aliens are revealed and they're peaceful, you know, you can kind of say, oh yeah, I'm giving this wondrous kind of look. You know, maybe we've been fooled up to press, and this more positive kind of view of alien visitors, and they are just coming to meet us, to introduce themselves.
Yeah, usually saucers are so drab. It was nice to have the bright lights. It did look different than even what we see now, which are obviously more sleek because of like aesthetic preferences. But
and this is not a Shrek reference, but they have layers to them. There's levels. It's a stack, you know. It's not just like a disc. It was something that actually looked vaguely functional, that you're going to have multiple levels, you're going to have it, you know, on top of each other.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose one of the weaker points of this is probably when the aliens are actually revealed at the end. You know, you get this kind of weird spindly looking one, kind of, you know, with like intense backlight, kind of ducking under the door, and then afterwards all these little ones, you know, the classic kind of grey big-headed aliens kind of shuffle out.
So
if they'd all looked like the initial one,
you mentioned you didn't know their purpose. I thought that the little ones were babies they had with the humans, and that the aliens grow into the large, weird bug thing.
Oh God, I hope not. That seems really dark.
That's the Cronenberg sequel that we've yet to see.
Right, they tried out various kind of methods of realising the aliens. You know, Spielberg kind of wanted to avoid the just guys in suits thing if all possible, but ended up having to use that. I think he originally wanted to put an orangutan in a suit, you know, to get those kind of simian kind of slightly inhuman kind of movements, but they couldn't get the right response from the ape. Kept wanted to just hold on to the hand of its handler and not really perform in the scene like they wanted to. Probably for the best. And then they tried speeding up and slowing down footage. They wanted the aliens to move really kind of superhuman kind of quickly, and then all the humans would kind of move in slow motion. And then when they played the film kind of forward at normal speed, then there'd be the speed difference. But that didn't work either. So in the end, they just had little guys in grey alien suits shuffling about.
Are weird.
They're not probably on screen for it to negatively impact the film. I mean, it's as per usual with a lot of these kind of Spielberg suspense kind of things. It's definitely more effective when you don't see that much. He's doing everything with John Williams' music and with the lights and sound design and kind of when your imagination's going into overdrive, they're the most effective scenes. I mean, I think this kind of it's obvious strength as a filmmaker. It kind of gets the character work really spot on. The family kind of dynamic is kind of grounds are believable, and these really kind of tense kind of scenes of suspense, and scenes of wonder and kind of humor and adventure. It's all there.
And it begins his obsession with Pinocchio.
Yes, it's interesting. I've not got to the bottom of where that comes from particularly, but as Jacob points out in our chat during the week, it's in at least 3 of his films,
I'll get
probably
to
more.
it for my movie, but for me, the family stuff doesn't work at all. And the Schrader script as described feels like it fits what the story is going for, because there's the kind of humorous bit where he's throwing all the stuff into the house to build the butte or whatever. It's just I don't know. None of that really worked for me. The bits with the family, it's all very 1970s in the sense that it's a little bit bleak and depressing, and I don't feel any warmth or familial love that would really make me feel conflicted whenever he essentially abandons his family.
But I think we can just chalk that up to him being not quite right in the head at that point. He's going through some stuff, and
it fits with the theme of communication. And a breakdown in communication.
And his wife spots that he's not quite right at this moment in time. So she said, I'm getting the kids out of here for a while until you've sorted your stuff out, basically. I mean...
quite right.
But you said the family stuff doesn't kind of work for you, Jake. Did the family dynamic work for you in Jaws, for instance? Brody and his kind of wife and kids. Did that work for you?
I don't remember specifically in a way to compare it. It probably also doesn't work for me, so maybe that's something he just improves at as he makes films.
I think that's just I think that's just how he kind of does families, and I think they're always a little bit dysfunctional, but generally kind of loving and kind of working their way through some issues. Not normally, I mean, it's one of the few films where it's still like a married parents, and it's like a proper nuclear family, which you don't see very often in Spielberg's films. I mean, I'm not sure whether, again, it's kind of that is kind of awkwardly halfway between the general family kind of audience and this kind of broader, kind of darker, kind of conspiracy thriller. Maybe all those elements don't quite mesh together, and there's different. Again, as you say, it might be to do with different versions of the screenplay, and different. Some elements been carried over, and new ones been brought in, and not quite matching. I don't know, but generally for me, I think this is higher end of his kind of sci-fi efforts. I mean, this and E.T. I think are both really good. And if you go for something a bit darker, you go for Minority Report generally. But I can't get if you don't jibe with kind of the with the tone of it and with his kind of take on kind of family dynamics and stuff, then probably isn't going to connect.
And I think, there's a thing with kind of, I'm now going to sound older films, as if the only things I watched from the year 2000, where we all know it's beyond 1990. I haven't seen it, but back in the day, you were kind of allowed to take your time with things. So you could build in these kind of family dynamics. There are so many films that are kind of big budget films where it's only like 25, 30 minutes in that kind of the main plot point actually kicks into gear, you know? Whereas now, like, you do that, you get more than 5 minutes in, everyone's going, this is so boring, I'm out. And all the producers are going, what are you doing? So I wonder if some of the kind of... Because it's not like action-packed, you know? You get moments. You get the beginning. You get kind of the abduction scenes. You get the scene, probably my favorite scene, where he's in the car and all the power goes out and it starts rattling around and all that kind of thing. That stuff, I think, really works. And then you do get a period where it sort of slows down and it's sort of building up to something like that. And I'm wondering if that's just like the pacing of back then, or the way that you could do things, and so he's allowed time to try and focus. Whether you think it works,
I'll be genuinely interested to see how he tackles like the authority figures in Disclosure Day, because so many things have changed over decades now, and with how like institutions and government agencies are kind of viewed. I mean, Spielberg's always viewed with suspicion in his films, but they're usually kind of figures not of just outright evil, but kind of just generally kind of that you shouldn't trust them, but generally speaking, they're not going to maliciously cause you harm. Whereas things maybe have changed now. So whether he can still do that kind of softball kind of take on it now with how the world is, it'd be interesting to see what he does.
I think looking at the trailers, and I saw the trailer twice today. Going to see Obsession and Passenger. I will be interested to see what the differences are, because of all the movies, I think this looks like that he's done close to that aren't like Jurassic Park and Jurassic Park 2. This looks the film to be closest to another film that he's done. And so I think it'll be interesting to see.
I think in this film specifically for me, it would be like if we got the conversation, but there's a whole main part of the movie where Gene Hackman, like, we have to deal with his wife and his annoying kids. Like, if that was an hour, nearly, like 45 minutes of the conversation, I would like the conversation a lot less. Yeah. And that's what this feels like for me. So, I don't know.
Jacob is watching Alien movie for aliens and gets annoyed when a lot of
I like Francois Truffaut. I don't want to watch him present at a conference. Not realizing the fact tones.
that he doesn't realize that most Spielberg movies are about the thing that they're not actually about. Giant shark movie. Everyone goes for a giant shark, but giant shark movie is not actually.
I like
giant
Jaws.
Shark.
I don't love this as much. Like it. There's a difference.
Fair enough.
I say this, admittedly, a giant dinosaur movie
Catch
actually
Me If You
is
Can is about
dinosaurs.
catching him if you can. All right?
But it's also not about catching him. This is how you know when good movies are good. Yes, but it is not terminal. Yeah, I think this is a point where kind of if a movie's purely popcorn, if there's something more. The thing this is about is not actually the thing which is about.
Because it's the 70s, this is a popcorn movie.
Going off on The Exorcist, going.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Isn't that great?
It's fascinating.
When you can have a popcorn movie that isn't just explosions every 3 seconds.
It was fascinating the movies that not only kind of topped the box office at this era, but also got awards recognition at the same time. It was... Yeah, and hopefully we're getting back towards something like that. Kind of the signs of tide turning a bit, possibly.
I don't know. Super Mario Galaxy is currently topping the box office at the moment, so this year.
All right. Okay, let's. Shall we spring forward?
From aliens to something that looks like aliens.
Well, yeah. I never seen this. I thought the things at the end were aliens. I didn't realize that they were.
Literally everybody has that thing. Everybody's done it. Don't worry.
By the way, I mean, look. While I'm thinking about it, because this movie reminds me a bit of Shyamalan. War of the Worlds, like Shyamalan probably saw that was coming out and was like, okay, I got to make that, but with nothing. But this movie feels very Shyamalan to me, and not that in the sense that there's a twist or anything, but just it's a very strangely crafted film.
Yeah, there are many reasons for this, which will take up probably a good 2/3.
What is AI, artificial intelligence, about? It is about a little boy. Oh yeah, I guess the Haley Joel Osment makes me think of it too. A little robot boy. He's an AI child. He is an experiment to see if humans and AI can form familial love bonds, and so whenever the mother realizes that she does not like an AI boy so much, she abandons him in the woods, and he goes on a journey to find the blue fairy from Pinocchio so that he can become a real boy. And man, it is a wacky movie.
Right.
Yes.
Are we going to begin with the obvious?
The obvious, which is this was directed and written by Steven Spielberg, but it came from the mind or the origin of an author who wrote a book. I forget what the title is. I'll probably find it later. But Stanley Kubrick wanted to adapt the book.
It's Super Toys.
Thank you.
Super Toys Last All Summer Long.
Super Toys Last All Summer Long. Kubrick wanted to adapt that into a movie. And here's the fun deal. So, Kieran, you brought up Mark Kermode talking about, the sentimental stuff is Spielberg, and the cool high concept philosophy stuff, sci-fi, that's Kubrick. No, that is not correct. So, that's how people commonly read it. I also found that from Peter Bradshaw. He had a similar thing. Wired had a similar thing. But Spielberg, he sat down in 2002 with Joe Lydon, and he discussed that the parts that people thought were his were Kubrick's. So the last 20 minutes and the first 35 to 40 minutes, that's all old Stanley. And then Spielberg made the dark center with the flesh fair and the, basically the journey. The journey to finding not aliens 2,000 years in the future. That's all Spielberg.
And yet there is a load of concept art which I think was done. So, like, one of the main images of the film of the bridges going into Rouge City, I'm fairly sure there were some bits and ideas of that Stanley had done, or at least were done when Stanley was still around. And I mean, you look at like one of the main structures, the kind of the Ladies' Legs Hotel. I'm not sure what else you're going to call it. You look at that. You look at half of these images and go, "This is pure Clockwork Orange." So even if it wasn't sort of Stanley making it, Spielberg is kind of. I think he once described it as kind of. He tried to do it as if Kubrick was doing it, so it felt. I think he said it felt like he was being directed by Stanley,
creating an homage
or something along those lines. So even the bits that. Yeah, so there are some things where you're just like, this is so much Spielberg trying to be Kubrick, and I think Rouge City sums it up. If anywhere,
I do think it all works too. I didn't think of it in that way. I was just watching this as, this is a Spielberg movie. Yeah. He's credited for the directing and writing. Kathleen Kennedy produced it. This is where she's making her hay before everybody online begins to hate her. But yeah, the other thing, the Pinocchio stuff, that's all Kubrick. He was like, I want to take this book and I want to merge it with Pinocchio. And then he handed him some other book about this Ian Watson, the screen story writer. He handed him the book. I can't find it now. Anyway, it's something about the future of artificial intelligence. And that's pretty much what Kubrick's vision was I'm going to make a movie that's a robot Pinocchio story. That's what Spielberg kind of came into whenever he was making the movie. But ultimately he was handed the project in 1999 after Kubrick's death by a producer, Jan Harlan, and Kubrick's wife, Christiane. They approached him about doing it, and he wrote the screenplay from the treatment that had kind of already, the screen story that was written, and it was his first solo screenplay credit since Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I think it's quite funny, the history of AI. I don't think we'll ever get a definitive timeline of what happens, because I've also heard that kind of Kubrick approached Spielberg to suggest that he does it back in like 95 or something along those lines, and it had been on the back burner ever since, because Spielberg was busy doing Lost World and Munich and all these kinds of things and Saving Private Ryan, and then Kubrick was going, I'm going to do Eyes Wide Shut and all this kind of stuff. So I don't think so. The idea, I don't know whether it's just like that, and they reapproached him and went, can you please do this now? And he went, okay, I'm now going to move all my other stuff aside and actually get round to doing it. Or if it was just like, you maybe should do this.
I just put it, I marked it there as that's when he was officially handed the project, was when he died. So,
yeah. I think it had probably been discussed beforehand, and he'd gone, yeah, maybe I'll get round to doing it at some point. But this is when he went, okay,
and then there was also this really weird marketing thing. So I found this recordnet.com or recordnet.com, who knows. I think it took this article from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel in 2001 and like rehosted it. So, anyway, the article is about this weird, like, marketing campaign. It compares it to the Blair Witch Project. It had a pervasive and unique internet presence, according to the author Dwayne Dudek. So it set up these different sites. One was anti-robot, one was for robot freedom, and then there was a clearinghouse site that guides you through a convoluted layer of clues and puzzles about the death of a guy named Evan Chan.
I do kind of miss the days of kind of purpose-built kind of viral marketing websites,
Like, where they actually had some kind of cleverness behind them and were experimenting with the different things that they could do. Now they just put loads of things in a trailer and expect YouTube conspiracy theorists going, 15 things that you missed in the trailer.
Well, here's the annoying part about that is it has nothing to do with the movie. Nothing in the movie relates to it. It's just something they did to catch attention, which, I mean, that's the modern internet.
It's fun.
Yeah. Okay.
Good. It's fun.
But it's more fun when it relates to what's going on, which Blair Witch did. This sounds like it was just pointless. So.
Well, I mean, Blair Witch related to it because that was the only way they could get any kind of exposure. That's how they did their entire marketing was the internet, and everyone else tried to do the same thing. So this is riding Blair Witch's waves of seeing what works.
This is baby boomers destroying the internet. But yeah, I mean, whenever Spielberg, he talked about in a 2025 Reuters interview that like he was making a movie about sentience and entities that can love. Can a mother love a robot child? And it doesn't relate to what AI is when we think of like LLMs. And Wired in 2001 took an AI expert at the time named Philip Clark to see the movie in 2001. And he was like, that's not really what we're working on when we do AI. It's more stuff like speech recognition and problem solving. Basically he's trying to create what we have in our phones now for like route guidance and stuff like that. That's what AI was at the time. And while there had been people working on like primitive chatbots in the 60s and 70s and people felt connected to them, AI in this era is different from AI now, which makes, reading this movie through a modern lens interesting, but also different.
I think it wouldn't be that weird though if you renamed it and it wasn't AI. It was like, I don't know, the first robotics or something, something ridiculous like that. But you used a different word that was more kind of science fiction associated rather than general computing that science fiction had then used. Exactly. That's exactly what they should have called it.
Yes. Do we have can androids dream? Just stop there, and that's the title.
Can drown.
Yes.
Can
and I like this movie. I think this is my favorite of all of them. But it's because it's so weird, and I think really my favorite part of the movie is the domestic drama part that maybe I didn't like so much in Close Encounters.
I mean, you're wrong about that, but you're entitled to be wrong.
It's funny, for years this was one of the few Spielberg films I couldn't get on with at all. I used to hate it. I just thought it was slow and pretentious and just everything. Yeah,
Kubrickian.
Essentially, I really struggled with it for a long, long time. But then I think I rewatched it for the first time in a long time, a few years ago, and all of a sudden I thought, oh yeah, I finally get it. And I just said, it's just weird and twisted and completely its own thing, and I appreciate it so much more these days. I mean, I still think it's kind of maybe not quite the top tier of Spielberg stuff, but it's a fascinating film in its way.
Yeah. I mean, Jacob says that he found the domestic stuff the best part of it. He's absolutely wrong, because the best part of this movie is Jude Law. It's quite funny. This is actually one of the first Spielberg movies I watched when I was first getting into films. I just saw it and happened to pick it up. So I think I even watched AI before Jaws. I think I watched it. I might even watch it before Jurassic Park, that kind of stuff, because I didn't grow up with those kinds of films. I got into films later, and I was just grabbing stuff. And so AI, I think, I may have seen the Indiana Joneses. I might have seen one or two other things before then. I don't think I'd seen E.T. I don't think I'd seen Jurassic Park. So AI was one of the first ones. And it was also one of the first films. It probably is the film that, because I watched it fairly early on in my kind of film kind of education, if you like, it's the film that I think of Jude Law relating to. When I think of Jude Law, I think of him in AI. Bearing in mind, this is only the second time I've watched this movie. But Jude Law in this movie is so good. He's perfect in every way. His mannerisms, his body language, his physicality. It's so infectious and so well done. It's just, every time I watch him, yes, Jude, this is what he was made for. It's perfect.
But he's literally made for it in this, isn't he?
Well, I want to know...
Got it. Just the way he walks.
I want to know who was the genius that came up with Gigolo Joe as the replacement for Jiminy Cricket. That's genius. He strikes a pose in the moonlight shadow as he soft shoes. Yeah, he is great. His American accent, kind of Emily Blunt level, but
it doesn't need to be. He's a robot. It's not perfect.
Robots can do accents.
He was programmed to do it poorly.
Can robots accent electric sheeps? Exactly. There's the amazing thing that I think my favorite shot in the movie is when he walks out and starts walking down the road, and then there's a police car and he just instantly swivels and comes back again, and it is so perfect. It's balletic. It's absolutely the smoothest thing in the world, and I just love that. And I watched
if this wasn't Spielberg, this would be a cult film, because I don't know if it all fits, and it is kind of stupid. Yes. And the allegory for Pinocchio is it is literally in the dialogue. It is so on the nose, but it manages to overcome that a little bit for me.
Because the middle bit is so weird and cyberpunky, off in every way. And then it's just random stuff Brendan Gleeson's kind of robot catching people. It's just, how do we get the elevation? Is it in a helicopter? No, it's a giant balloon, hot air balloon.
We're in the future.
Why? What? Because. This is one of the things I love about sci-fi, and sci-fi, like, done well, is stuff like that. People will then analyse and go, but that doesn't really sound... It's like, but who cares? It's fun and it looks cool, so we're going to do
in the 19th century.
Have you seen what people in the 50s... Like, one of the most enduring images of sci-fi is a guy with a beanie with a propeller on its head. Like, it's just pointless. Like, we're going to do it anyway.
When people do, we've got plenty of like sci-fi westerns out there, and it's when people kind of try to take about it. But why would they still be dressed like cowboys? Why are they wearing spurs and they're coming out of spaceships? Because they look cool. Get over it.
I mean, going back to the episode we did a couple of weeks ago with our Star Wars spin-offs, it's just like, you can tell it's sci-fi because they're all in like ridiculous costumes and just like
rubber masks,
flowy see-through lycra, and it's just like, why? Because it's
and if they're not, then they're just dressed as a cowboy, like an ordinary cowboy, because that goes as well.
And also, the reason for this is because you have the amazing moment of just this balloon ship kind of moon rising behind Jude Law. And just that single shot, and you just go, that's the only reason that was put in there, because you have this like hot air balloon capture thing for one scene, and that's it. It's never brought up again, but it's worth it, and it's full. It's almost like proto, sort of like it feels very sort of Mad Maxy, in that you have this kind of big futuristic contraption that's overdone and slightly stupid, that we'll probably never use again, because, I mean, in Mad Max it'll get blown up at some point. But here it just never get around to it again. It's like dystopian, it's like weird, it's just, but it looks good, and it's fun, and we're going to do it. And it's got Brendan Gleeson in it, just going, all right then, let's go capture them guys, in an accent that I can't do and won't do, and it's glorious. Like,
so I really like
fun. And I know it's meant to be very serious and kind of
I really like the
but who cares?
Kubrick contributions to this. The opening part, the parts that people would think are Kubrick, but also, they're the family stuff with the creepy child. I really like the idea of a family whose kid is dying, and so they replace him with a robot, or they're chosen to replace him with a robot, and it kind of loses a bit for me when the kid just recovers. And I like the bits in there, but then that's why they ultimately kick him out, as like, well, we don't need the replacement anymore.
But I like that when the sick kid gets better and he's just complete dick to him.
He's a little sociopath.
It's like you expect like a sweet little brotherly dynamic, but no, he sees him as a thing that he can use and abuse. That's the most distressing passage by far. When he's kind of clashing, with his, with the, fake boy versus real boy. Fake boy just wants to be loved, so it's part of the family, and real boy is just like, no, I want to put you out in the trash. I want to destroy you and make you feel miserable and put you out in the trash.
To quote from right near the end of Super Toys Last All Summer Long, which is about like 9 pages long. So in this one, literally, it's kind of all the opening stuff is reworked for, the opening stuff is what's reworked from the short story. So like, he doesn't even get a band and that kind of stuff. It's pretty much everything until kind of the son recovers in the original story. It's because essentially birth rates are essentially kept under control. And at the end of it, they kind of win a lottery that allows them to have a child, essentially. It's almost like government mandated. And you've got the mother and the father there, and David and Teddy outside, and all the way through, David's like, does she really love me? Am I real? All that kind of thing. And right at the end, David, which is great, goes, Teddy, I suppose Mummy and Daddy are real, aren't they? And Teddy goes, you ask such silly questions, David. Nobody knows what real really means. Let's go.
I like that.
And it's like, that's so like 1970s pretentious sci-fi.
That also sounds just like if Winnie the Pooh took a philosophy class.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yes. and it's a teddy bear as well. It's great.
The,
so it's like if you, I think it's like if you want the entire point of this film, there you go.
The reason they're chosen is the guy at the beginning who's explaining what's going to happen in the movie. He says that, we need to see, not only can an AI love a child, but can a family then love the child back? And so, basically the whole thing is set up as an experiment. And just immediately as a person who gets to live in 2026, I can tell you, people will fall in love with a robot that doesn't even have a form. It's just text on the screen. If you could put a real human child in front of an adult that wants a kid, they'll probably love it back. It felt like it could have leaned more actually into that question. Even if there's like a grander question and aspect we don't fully know about, like as the film goes on.
Yeah, there is an entire thing which is kind of building into, it's formed part of my PhD research, called sometimes called chatbot psychosis, or also called AI psychosis. It's not an official diagnosis yet, but it will be. It was pitched in 2023 by a Danish psychiatrist. It's essentially, you get the Wikipedia, it's a phenomenon where an individual's report developing or experiencing worsening psychosis, such as paranoia and delusions in connection with the use of their chatbots. So essentially all the people that there are like multiple cases a year going, essentially, the chatbot told me how to acquire weapons to go on a mass shooting, or there was, in the last year or two, there was essentially somebody was going to try and like attack the queen, the king, whoever was, reigning at the time, and essentially asked AI how to do it. And because it doesn't understand the difference between reality and kind of like, fantasy, just gives the instructions. So kind of it is an entire thing. So the idea that a human can love, yes, it can, because it also treats it as God, essentially, which is just, it's terrifying. It's kind of an evolution of the whole we're living in the Matrix kind of delusion, which obviously was an evolution of Plato and, Thomas Aquinas and all this kind of stuff. But it does not take much to trick the human brain, because we are stupid.
No, we are very stupid. I think the mom is like a special kind of sociopath who gave birth to Martin. That must be the case. I also love Haley Joel Osment in this opening part, because like he plays the weird robot detached version who then gets flipped with like his Winter Soldier mantra that turns him into a loving real boy. But like he's still too needy and like just way too much, in addition to being tricked into doing bad things by the son because he's naive. But Haley Joel Osment's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, can we just take a moment, just say in general, Haley Joel Osment is incredible acting. Everything I've seen, obviously it was great, and obviously in this and Sixth Sense, most people know him for. But it's kind of really interesting kind of older character actor now, in various TV things as well. So he's really versatile and kind of nuanced in everything he does. So good on him. Long may he continue to make unexpected appearances. You're just watching a random TV show. Oh, it's Haley Joel Osment. Oh, it's nice to see him again.
Yeah. And the whole first bit, I mean, it's pretty standard in terms of its shooting. Like it's going to get really weird looking later. But I also, the mom ultimately, like, because the first bit is also shot like a horror film, like The Omen or whatever. What ends up happening is the mom goes and abandons him in the woods, and is like, just don't go that way because that's the robot people and they will kill you. But go anywhere else, and she leaves him there like a puppy, and she's gone, and we are entering the fairy tale.
And it's a heartbreak. And it's a heartbreaking scene as well.
All you need to do is stab like a spear through his foot to really drive home the whole Oedipus kind of like, allegory metaphor. It's like, that's literally, I'm surprised that Spielberg didn't do it, because that's as on the nose as you can get, really.
Yeah. And then we get to the flesh fair bit which is robots being tortured.
Yes, the Kubrick non-Kubrick parts.
It's the bit from Pinocchio where they go to Pleasure Island and they have fun, but they get turned into donkeys for being bad boys or whatever. And I'm working off I watched this 30 years ago memory, so
that's pretty much it. Yeah.
There's a guy named Stromboli that will be stuck in my head forever. But Italians.
Sounds more like an Italian passage.
But yeah, no, it's really grotesque. There's random robots voiced by someone. You'll go, oh, Chris Rock, what are you doing here? Playing the black android. But they're all old models, and they torture them for fun in a coliseum.
Yeah, you've got. I was just bringing up the cast because I'd completely forgotten who did the voices. Yes, you got Chris Rock. So you got Ben Kingsley, Robin Williams, Dr. No.
Yeah. And then the Blue Fairy is eventually voiced by Meryl Streep,
who,
hilariously enough, and I bring this up because it's great, she originally, I think actually tried out, she auditioned, Meryl Streep, for the role of Ronnie, which is Teri Garr's part, in Close Encounters. So it all links back. This is almost like, Christopher Lee finally getting a role in Star Wars after turning it down in 1977,
Yeah.
It all connects, you see. This is exactly
Gigolo Joe, we discussed him a bit, but they link up in the woods because he's a pleasure bot, a lover bot. He could turn his hair different colors and change his accent to appease whoever he's with. And he goes to see a lady, and she's been murdered by a guy, and so he's being framed for murder, so he runs away. But then he takes the kid to Rouge City when they escape so that they can find Dr. No, who can tell them where to find the Blue Fairy, because he is a search engine, but with voice and limited categories.
I think of everything, that is the most naive thing in this movie.
No ads for Dr. No. It only costs $10.
Not even good. Yeah, it's like an Ask Jeeves era kind of search engine, isn't it?
Yeah. What was it 2 for $5?
You got to merge together flat fact and fairy tale, which are definitive categories that you can search in order to say where's the Blue Fairy from Pinocchio.
Yep.
And then his answer is you go. Okay, so the beginning of this movie, I skipped over this. The whole world is climate change flooded. The rising oceans have covered New York and every major coastal metropolis. And who knows where Rouge City is? I mean, I guess it's inland somewhere. They live in New Jersey at the beginning of the movie, so New Jersey didn't flood. But it's funny that a major corporation is in New Jersey. But they have to go to submerged Manhattan, where the Statue of Liberty, the little pole is poking out of the water, and the Twin Towers are still, it's 2001 with this release, but pre 9/11, because when it was made. So the Twin Towers are poking up out of the water, and they have to go to the Manhattan or New York Public Library with lion statues.
Obviously. I will say the last thing on Dr. No, actually, we say that it's incredibly unbelievable. And yet, actually, what is it doing? It's collating all this information and not giving you a list of things to search. It's just giving you one right at the beginning of everything, which is exactly how Google now works. And it's really annoying because every time I Google something, I want to scroll past it, but the information's already there. And it's near enough accurate that for 90% of the time, it doesn't, it's not worth going. I want to scroll down and actually find the information myself, but it's already, shoved it down my throat.
The only problem is when it's noticeably
myself.
Bad. And the times that exactly I don't notice it, I say it's reliable enough. Woof.
Yeah. There was something I looked up recently, and it was something to do with F1, and it named a driver that hadn't been racing for the last 5 years or something along those lines. It's what is going on? Yeah. It's like, well, it couldn't have been that guy that won. He crashed.
Well, finally,
the race.
they
What
get to Professor Hobby, who's the guy they had to find, and that is Geppetto. And I don't know why I said that Italian, but anyway, I'm doing Chris Pratt. It turns out Professor Hobby built him in this special lab, and he was testing to see if an AI, robot person could become attached to and follow an intangible, non-factual dream to find the blue fairy. Now, look, we could quibble over whether or not, like, following the blue fairy counts for what he's trying to achieve, which is a robot having, like, a non-tangible, purely functional goal. But we also kind of know how LLMs work, and we understand the way that they can attach to ideas that are not real but exist, and then they can sort of anchor that into something that is real, misapply, misappropriate, that kind of stuff. Like, the blue fairy is real in the same sense that anything that is not real is real as a, considered idea or whatever. I mean, yeah, we're getting into the teddy bear at the end saying, like, what is real? Shut up. I don't know if he shows that he has done anything special here other than follow his very advanced programming. But, like, if that's the goal, cool. It worked out for you. You could start your line of kids that you're going to sell to people, and we won't get into the potentially nefarious side of that, and assume it's just all going to nice families who want a child. David is not unique. He is a robot.
What? Why are they still working out of a flooded city?
It's a great question.
This is the ruined city. Why are there still people there? That and the fact that it surely, like, when did Manhattan flood?
I don't know.
Sometime before this takes place.
The near future.
But they got him from there. So did they go to the flooded city? So, like, was David, like, bought and sold from that place? So every time they have to do, like, an expose, they have to do, like, a Steve Jobs kind of releasing the new thing. Do they have to fly everyone to flooded Manhattan to do it? Why are you still working out of Manhattan?
Maybe they deliver everything by boat.
Yeah, could be boat.
Why?
Yeah. Well,
move somewhere else.
Kieran,
this is the only place that's still flooded.
It's New York. And we do know that he wakes up there.
There's nobody else bloody there. Did you see anyone else there? Like, if there was enough people there in order to keep a massive cybernetics industry business going, we'd have at least seen other vehicles coming in and out of the entirety of Manhattan. There is nobody. It's a ruin. It is the Las Vegas and Blade Runner 2049 of this movie. And by the way, I'm just saying that when obviously David goes into that place, I'm just thinking of Blade Runner and Roy Batty going into Terrell, beating Terrell. I can tell you which one is better. The more I think it's really cool to end up at this place and see somebody still working. But it's the idea that it's like he still plans to sell all these things off because you've got all the models there. Like, he's still working. He's still apparently fine. Everything is going. And they only had David. This whole movie has taken the place over what? A couple of months? If that. So, like, it's got its own mythology. It's Manhattan. Like, how long is this go? This is not enough time for it to be normal and then flood and destroyed. And it's go all be nothing.
Kieran, look, you're right.
Not enough time.
But here's the great thing is, he gets in the submarine helicopter and he goes down to submerged Coney Island where he sees the blue fairy and then freezes for 2,000 years and humans no longer matter or exist. And wouldn't you know it, his wish technically came true because now he is more like a human than the advanced aliens that are apparently advanced AI androids, because they look so inhuman.
I will say, they look like They've just got the most alien design ever, and it's just
cool.
You can see just like the lights from it. That's obviously meant to be electrical impulses. I will say with the whole 2,000 years later thing, and kind of with everything else, if you want to know like if it's Kubrick inspired, look at the structure of the movie. Like, and it all goes on. The last like bit is so 2001, it's untrue. Like, it's ridiculous. It is just 2001 remade as like Spielberg. Like, and if Spielberg wasn't thinking of 2001 when making the last 15-20 minutes of this movie, I don't know what he was thinking of. Just don't, because
it's the post-humanist world that he now inhabits. Like, they can apparently take genetic material and bring someone back to life, but only for one day. And when they go to sleep, they die. And so earlier he...
Yeah. And do you know why that is? It's because that's what would happen if it was a fairy tale.
Oh, because of space-time, and you only get one path in space-time, and once it's been severed, it cannot continue. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah. And when you die, you get reincarnated.
That's the only point. That's the only point it goes too far into explaining, I think. But I mean, I guess you have to explain it. But whatever. I mean, he gets to have his mom for a day because when he was a creepy child, he cut off a piece of her hair, and then Teddy, being a creepy child, also put it inside of his body.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I've just remembered that the scene at the beginning with the scissors, that still makes me shudder today. It's such a horrible scene.
It's creepy.
It's like coming out with the scissors, and then
almost hit her in the eye.
Didn't mean anything by it, but God, you would be shitting yourself if you woke up to that.
Yep. And that, like, the fact the parents never investigate any of that, like, that annoys me. But whatever. Pretty much he gets to spend a day alone with his mom, and he draws all of his adventures for her, but he can't tell her too much because it'll put her into like shock and she'll die sooner than she already is going to die. And he holds her hand as she goes to sleep, and because he's a robot child, he could just lay there with her forever and they could sleep. The narrator, there's a narrator in this movie. I forgot about that, and I don't like it. The narrator mentions that he dreams a dream, and then Teddy comes and gets on the bed with them, and the movie's over. And it's very Kubrick, but it's also very touching and sweet, and apparently in his original version of the movie. So
there was elements in the original movie. There's Spielberg input, like, you know, it's an original, it's an idea, it's a draft, it's a concept, but in order to get it from that to an actual kind of working kind of Spielberg, you've got to do some edits and changes.
The point being, this part is not the pure Spielberg people might think it is. It was in the bit Ian Watson's writing that Spielberg's cribbing off of and expanding. So,
it's weird. Spielberg kind of puts himself into the Kubrick bits and then brings Kubrick into the Spielberg bits. So the bits that feel more like Kubrick are Spielberg going, how would Stanley do this, essentially, I think is what's going on. And then the stuff that Kubrick had already kind of thought of, it's him going, I need to do this, so I need to bring myself in here in order to make it coherent, which is why you get this kind of disconnect between everything. Again, I don't think actually we'll ever know exactly which parts are which, because this is now, you know, Kubrick would have started making this, or he bought the rights in like 1977. So, you know, we're nearly 50 years on from Stanley Kubrick originally thinking about how to do this. You know, even if we go through all his archives of what was stored, what was handed to Spielberg, you know, over the 4 years when he initially said it, I don't think we're ever going to know exactly what made it into the final cut, which was exactly Kubrick or exactly Spielberg or which and which. But it is, it's an interesting artifact, and it's actually a very good movie. I don't think it's
we can really
Spielberg,
only get it from Ian
run.
Watson and anybody else that collaborated with Kubrick. Like those are the only sources now that he's dead, because he wasn't writing about this process or interviewing about it really. But yeah, I mean the critics, they were mixed. They kind of liked it. they were more on the like side. Audience did not care. It made enough money, to hit the 2.5 basically, but it didn't make a ton, and it only made 78.6 million in the US, which that's not great if you're Spielberg.
Yeah.
People like it more now, like you talked about, Kieran, but
yeah. It's one of only a couple of Spielberg films that you consider like cult movies. This and probably Hook, probably his cult.
It's a Spielberg cult movie for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's
and it's interesting because Spielberg has kind of obviously the big ones that are known, and then he also has a large number of films that people are just like, what the hell was that movie? Like, I never knew this one existed. There's even stuff like Amistad. Who the hell remembers Amistad? Like, again, 1941, Always. Who the hell remembers Always? Like, it just doesn't exist. It's just faded out of people's heads. And I think AI is another one of those, and it's a shame because, there are some misses in there, but you know what? It's very, very rare that a film has no misses. So
it's a very weird movie. I'd rather watch what we're putting out now with Megan and Companion and things like that are more just informed by our current state of affairs. Like, this is an interesting idea. It's of its time ultimately, and part of its time previous to the time that it was currently in. It's kind of old fashioned and outdated, I think, if you're thinking about like how people were beginning to think about AI in the early 21st century. So
I think if you take it as how specifically AI is done, that's fine. If you just take it just like robots and androids kind of thing, in the same way that like Blade Runner is incredibly unrealistic, but it's still an old fashioned in that sense. But if you just take it just like
Blade Runner
history or something like that kind of
I don't need to tell you it's a better movie. Like it's there's just movies that are either more engaging, more interesting. They fit into like the genre stuff better. I mean, this is a weird movie, and it's interesting for what it is, but it's not an upper tier Spielberg. I will give him that.
Yeah.
It's not top tier, but it definitely is not lower tier. I'd say it's second tier.
Agreed. So shall we see what Spielberg does with sci-fi post 9/11?
Yeah. Michael Bay Spielberg?
He literally does 9/11. You say that, but 2 years after War of the Worlds, guess what he produces? Transformers. And has gone on to produce all the Transformers movies, as far as I'm aware.
First three.
That sounds like a man who likes money.
Okay. Here's the thing.
I didn't mean that in an anti-Semitic way. I'm now realizing.
Of course he likes money. I found I haven't read the whole thing because I didn't have time to, but an article from last year on The Independent called How War of the Worlds Became One of Spielberg's Most Controversial Movies. And essentially talking about how essentially this film couldn't have been made without 9/11. It is just sort of, what if we use War of the Worlds as a metaphor for 9/11, essentially. And kind of, for some reason, that hadn't really struck me with the timing of it. I don't know, because I just see disaster movies as disaster movies and War of the Worlds. I was thinking of it more in terms of War of the Worlds. But as soon as you kind of think that, you go, yeah, that's fair. And maybe it's also because I hated, again, when I was doing film studies, I started in 2015, and every single book was just like, oh, horror movies completely changed after 9/11. Everything is now infused with 9/11 parables and, allegories and stuff like that. And you kind of go, no, not really. Not all of it. Like, Eli Roth, when he was making Cabin Fever, was not thinking about 9/11. This isn't how this works, But the more you look at it, the more you kind of go, yeah, I can actually kind of see, even if it wasn't intentional, where people
Kieran,
could
I'll
get
give you this.
idea and stuff.
Maybe not. He wasn't being like, oh, I'm going to make this a 9/11 allegory or something. But the culture in America, even as like a 8-year-old or whatever I was, it felt very different after 9/11. The paranoia people had about like terrorists and Islam, and it was in the atmosphere and inescapable.
And just and just using that aesthetic of like the news coverage, like at amateur video and stuff, and the dust, and buildings come around people, and people covered in debris. It's even if it's not an intentional kind of allegory, as you say, it's using that imagery for a purpose.
Maybe Cloverfield wouldn't exist without this, if this wouldn't exist without 9/11.
Yeah.
That and just everyone trying to take out the Statue of Liberty. So it is a retelling in an interview. Spielberg is at kind of length to say that this is not a remake of the 1953 The War of the Worlds. This is a retelling of the original H.G. Wells novel. Obviously, I haven't been through and reread it in one of my many volumes of H.G. Wells, but I had a friend of mine at university who actually acted in our first year film, who War of the Worlds his favourite thing, and he had a tattoo of a quote of bows and arrows against the lightning on it. And still, when I think of War of the Worlds, I cannot get the Jeff Wayne version out of my head, which I think is I looked it up, and it's something like still like the 98th best-selling album in the UK, or something along those lines. There are sort of the Stones records that it's beaten out. That and just Richard Burton's voice in my head.
I saw the version about 10 years ago where Liam Neeson records his part as like the narrator, but he was like he was on stage in like hologram form, So
well,
so good.
I just realized
obviously
this movie is about Ray and Robbie, and 2 movies ago was about Roy and Ronnie. So that was it's eye-opening for me.
Definitely. So it's a retelling of the original novel from 1897. I want to say this. It might be 1898. I can't remember. Which obviously went through many different versions. Obviously, famously with Orson Welles' radio version. That I think the myth of that has been played up over time. Of everyone was in panic. They were running for the hills. It was like a small amount of people, and it just got played up around the world. But then a version came out in 1953, which is actually very good and very influential.
It's good. It's good despite not featuring the tripods.
They are tripods. Because it says that they kind of walk on sort of like there's 3 sort of like line things that come down, and they're kind of like energy beams, and that's how they get away with them still being tripods.
Is this the Ice Cube one?
They're not proper tripods, but they're still technically tripods. No, okay. 53, not from 2025. I
was going to say, they are tripods in Ice Cube.
I still want to have some brain cells.
I
haven't seen the Ice Cube version for this. Yeah, to make them think. Obviously, Roswell's been 6-7 years beforehand, so they're going to be more flying saucer inspired. But they've got little kind of CGI, almost like string kind of things coming down to go. Look, they're still they're on 3 little things running around. I haven't seen the Ice Cube one for the same reason that I'm not on TikTok, which is I would like to survive this life with brain cells. So this version is shifted the events to modern day America, and it stars Tom Cruise, of all people, in the lead role. He's now a blue collar worker, even different colours. Roy, who's essentially trying to do his best, but he just kind of goes to work, comes home, and doesn't care. And he's got divorced, and now his wife's dumped the kids off with him. Essentially, the main one being very young Dakota Fanning.
His job is that worst mission in GTA
and then
5,
they're all
Trevor,
going,
where you have to put move trailers around in a dock.
Yeah.
Yeah, he works at a dockyard. Essentially, the War of the Worlds starts happening. And in this one, and people, again, in this article were kind of sort of going off on the idea that originally, obviously, and in the 53 version, essentially what happens is the Martians kind of launch via sort of big cylinders. There's green flash coming out from Mars, and they come down in cylinders, and the tops kind of rotates and unscrews, and then inside they've built these how big these cylinders are, I don't know, because they've got these massive tripods that seem to be much bigger than the cylinders they come down on. Maybe they went to IKEA on Mars. And with the heat rays that kind of...
I think Morgan Freeman said they observed IKEA.
Here, they've kind of... I don't even know how it works. Is it they buried the machines like millions of years ago and now they come down on the lightning?
I don't really get the lightning thing either, because they do like freeze frame of the footage of the lightning, and then the aliens have come down on... then their machines are already buried. But then if they've been there for a while, why wouldn't they know about what the Earth's atmosphere does to them?
Yeah, and hilariously enough, I saw a thing before starting this. Neil deGrasse Tyson had exactly the same issue. Just like, did they know about Earth? They've had this thing for a while. Why did they not know about the bacteria?
The problem with all versions of this story has always been the ending is a bit of an anticlimax, isn't it? It's a nice twist, but it's also an anticlimax.
Yeah. It's a genius idea, but unfortunately it revolves around essentially everyone just live long enough to survive, and then the aliens will die naturally. Like, there's no kind of input from the narrator on it. But I mean, the entire thing is meant to be an anti-colonial kind of allegory. Bearing in mind the British Empire, we did last week. We did an entire thing
anti-colonial, but more anti-enemy. Enemies expanding and warfare. Because it was like he was writing it during like the Franco-Prussian War, wasn't it? It was kind of referencing that. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, there's a quote in there somewhere. I can't remember what it was. Something along the lines of, here it is. We must remember what ruthless and utter destruction our own species of war, not only upon animals such as the vanished bison or the dodo, but upon its own inferior races. The Tasmanians were entirely swept out of existence in a war of extermination waged by European immigrants in the space of 50 years. Are we such apostles of mercy as to complain that the Martians warred in the same spirit? Yeah. So again, and this is why at the beginning of the film you get the mum, who I cannot remember who
it's Miranda Otto. It's Eowyn, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, that's it. Yeah. Essentially, the thing he says is that the son again,
Robbie.
Names, oh god. That Robbie, it's not a Roy or Robbie. I was thinking Robbie, then I'm like, I can't be.
Because he screams the name that much in like the last act. And I was remember, Robbie, he's a bit of a dick in this, isn't he?
Yeah, but he's got a paper on the French conquest of Algeria, I think it is, which is their updating essentially of the same kind of themes. But again, people in this Invented article are essentially going kind of the idea that the tripods have been here the entire time and comes up from underneath them is kind of it's not a threat from afar. In some ways, it's a threat from within, and therefore that playing into your sort of post 9/11 sort of psychosis and stuff going on. So then essentially you have bits of War of the Worlds, but then it's weird because it's a very well directed big old disaster monster invasion movie, but at the same time it is kind of just a big old disaster invasion movie. It is Spielberg going full spectacle, and going family bond.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
heart
yeah. Apart from the broken family kind of thing, there's not really that much Spielberginess to that you'd expect to this. Really, it's
there's kind of not that much else to it. I mean, it's very well done, and it looks great. And random 15 minutes from Tim Robbins playing a changed Ogilvy.
That's the best scene by quite some distance with the tentacle camera thing coming down to look for them and everything. That's great. That's a great piece of Spielberg suspense.
And the whole basement scene kind of is from the novel. It goes through the 50.
Though I do maintain we shouldn't have got as clear a look as the aliens. It's like I like in 53 version that we just get the arm in at the end. just.
No. You do actually see it twice in that basement scene.
I've not seen the 50th version in years. I've forgotten that. I just remember obviously references the dead arm kind of hanging out of the ship at the end of this, doesn't see.
Yeah. Well, here's the great thing. Okay, so for this movie, so the original two people in it whose names I've now forgotten, who were kind of the main guy and girl scientists in it, who I will grab just now, because this is how well my research is. I forget to actually take down any notes or anything like that. It's Gene Barry and somebody, isn't it? Yeah, so Gene Barry as Dr. Clayton Forrester, and then Anne Robinson as, not the weakest link Anne Robinson for all our UK listeners, as Sylvia Van Buren. So they actually play the grandparents right at the end of the film. Spielberg asked for a cameo, and he actually knew Gene Barry because Gene Barry had been in like a TV episode that Spielberg had done right at the beginning of his career. So still had that connection. And when they were back on for this film, he mentioned to Gene Barry, it's like, I hadn't, and Spielberg said he hadn't kind of really read H.G. Wells very much as a kid. It was when he got to college for like creative writing classes and stuff like that that he read it. But he obviously seen the film since, and he goes, I've referenced your film before. And Gene Barry's like, where? It's like, well, in E.T., there's a moment where kind of Elliot's looking out, and then you see E.T.'s hand kind of go over the shoulder and kind of touch him on the shoulder. And he goes, well, that's exactly the same scene with Anne Robinson in the basement, where the hand comes over and just touches on the side, and then you turn around and reveal the alien. So Spielberg's actually technically done War of the Worlds before this. And there's hilarious things about the look of the alien in the 53 version. The arms are so long because they made a bigger version, and the director went, no, make the aliens shorter and stumpier. And so, like, the main body of the alien was done by the special effects guy and his daughter overnight. It's hilarious. But yeah, so there are homages from the 53 version going into the 2005 one, into bits and pieces. But going back, like the basement scene, realistically, is, I think, the best scene in it. It is really well done. It's proper suspense, and I mean, you can see bits. There's Jurassic Park is still in there. It's pure Jurassic Park. There's other moments in other films where he's done kind of running around, but that's kind of the main one. It's blending his own experience with sort of the older stuff. And again, Tim Robbins has just been Tim Robbins, which is great. But aside from that, I mean, you get moments, but it kind of is set piece to set piece to set piece.
I think the initial attack scene, he was running through the streets and people being turned to dust by the ray around him. That's very effective. But once you've seen that once, and that you can't really do that again, can you? And I don't think the tripods are ever quite as effective or threatening again after that. And I still don't know why their noise is like a foghorn. why are they letting the lighthouse know that they're near the land?
Oh my gosh, it's all a Ray Bradbury thing. And you don't. I'm really upset that the boat that they have about halfway through the movie get onto. I'm really upset that they didn't do it in homage and call it the Thunder Child, because that's what the kind of warship is called in the original. It's the Thunder Child that the Martians take out. One of the things I do like about this is that, okay, it's nearer the end than I would have liked. It's like the last 25 minutes. But they do bring in the red weed, which the 53 version and quite a few versions kind of miss out. And it's because, obviously, the Martians are here and they're trying to remake it into a Martian landscape. So
I remember the poster for this. It was like, was it like an alien hand covered in the red weed kind of holding the globe, basically. It was...
Yeah. It's like the red weed is a fundamental part of it. Like, as soon as kind of the main kind of bases are taken out, suddenly they can start changing things over. I do actually also think that
I was honestly kind of like checked out by, and then whenever they brought in the terraforming like plant stuff, I was like, oh, this okay. I'm a little more interested now. Yeah.
Because essentially he spends so long doing the whole monster attack stuff. This kind of stuff that's interesting, because, again, War of the Worlds is two halves. It's monster attack and the survivors. But what he's done is he's made it 2/3 to 3/4 monster attack, and then like a quarter to a third survivors.
And then the people that have been captured, they've been ground up into. Are they being recycled for the aliens to get the nutrients out of them or something?
Yeah, they're essentially being eaten. I think they use blood for nutrients. Admittedly, that is a really beautifully haunting scene where he's just walking through the woods and you see all the clothes raining down and stuff like that. You do get most... And I was looking at that going, by the way, this is at night and I can see everything. Spielberg understands my issues.
It's like 12, isn't it? But it's like quite intense at times, isn't it? And you can understand why, if you're like a child or even an older child watching this, you might get a bit upset by it. I mean, there's a scene where Dakota Fanning wanders off, ends by a river, and there's like one body goes past another body, and then like about 50 bodies just washing down the river. It's quite a distressing scene, really.
There's exploding people in that laser scene.
But there's no blood involved.
But then when Tom Cruise gets back to the house and she asks him, "Dad, what are you covered in? What's all this stuff?" And he's like, you can see it go through his mind. Oh God, I'm covered in people.
Yeah, Sam will understand what I'm thinking for the first episode of Red Dwarf. Yeah, like my thing with this movie is that, again, they're very well done set pieces, and Spielberg knows how to direct. He knows how to get the most out of anything that he's doing. But essentially, it's relying on, realistically, Tom Cruise and Dakota Fanning to hold the movie. Yes, there's everyone else involved, but it's realistically those two. And those two are the excuse to have your set pieces. And my thing is, you need more of that. I would love him to go into the colonial kind of side, the empire side of it, a little bit more. Yes, it was kind of just an allegory that you wash off, but stuff like that he's been into before is the stuff where kind of War of the Worlds has a playing field which allows you to go into things. It's a bit like Godzilla, where you can use Godzilla to explore anything that you want to, and it kind of
in terms of bringing it up to date with the time it was made, in terms of like the themes and kind of the aesthetics of it. So talking 9/11 imagery, and there you got Dakota Fanning, shouting out, "Is it the terrorists?" Which is a nice kind of moment. But that sort of undercut a bit when a few scenes later the son asks the same thing. It's like, no, it was cute when she did it. You're just annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, the aesthetics are too drab for me. And there are moments, and Spielberg does know how to light things well, but it's a very gray movie. And then we also talked in our chat about the opening being the blue... like oversaturated, washed out, high contrast thing.
It was this era of sci-fi, though, wasn't it? It's like Minority Report looked the same.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like everything's got to, every light has to be suddenly like almost like a cross, not like exactly like a lens flare. You know what I mean? Where it's like it's not a circle in the distance anymore. It's got that kind of almost like pointed kind of star sort of thing, almost highly.
I also
it's more than highly polished.
I'm unsure if I would rather have them gone to find the mom, and then it's like any one of those movies where a divorced couple kind of reconnects in whatever way they're going to. It would have at least added more character dynamic, because Kieran, you did talk about it's mainly you have to like these two, because like the son runs off and gets blown up with the military or something. Unless he shows up at the end and I missed it.
Yeah, he does come back at the end.
Yeah, I thought he was dead, but...
They embrace at the end. He's a bit kind of charred around the edges and covered in mud, but he survives.
Yeah.
But I would have liked to see the mom in it, just make it a little Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did also appreciate the tanks rolling up and just there going, okay, this is Godzilla now. We've got to bring in our... if it was Godzilla, they would have been model tanks.
What do you guys think of Tom Cruise playing an everyman? Do you think it works or not?
He's not right.
He's not. Compared to,
he's doing his best.
His performance is fine, but he himself is not right.
Yeah. What Richard Dreyfuss can do effortlessly, this kind of a character, so it's a character like, an actor like that compared to Tom Cruise, even when he's not like Ethan Hunt, and running, jumping, climbing trees and falling off things, although just a bit of that in this. It's just, it's not real in his wheelhouse. I think they should have cast someone else.
His son's taller than him, and they can't show that.
Yes, he is. Yes.
Like, Tom Cruise is weird. Again, like, he puts in a decent enough performance, and he's trying. And he's giving it his all.
You know that opening scene in Dockyard that he'll have learned how to drive that crane properly for real, won't he? He'd have done like a 6-week course to that. It's that one shot.
Yeah. The trouble is, like, you see him kind of walking off, and the guy's like, you got to come back, and he's like, sorry, I can't do it. That kind of smarmy, suave, kind of good-looking, a few good men. Like, that is just the same thing planted onto somebody else. Yeah. That he can do perfectly. I combine playing it. There's not issue with playing a dad. I combine playing a dad, but just not a blue-collar working-class dad. It just doesn't feel right. Yeah. It's just going to sound weird, but in the nicest way, he's too good-looking for the role. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, he's too Hollywood. He's probably the best way I can describe it for this particular part.
If you use Russell Crowe, this works better, and you're still getting a star.
You'd have to get somebody else to play him, but put Tim Robbins in the lead.
That would work, yeah.
A bit more of a rough and tumble kind of... Not rough and tumble, but sort of like a shaggier, shabbier person. Dakota Fanning is great for doing this at 10 years old.
And it's just like, in this era, there were so many good kind of child actors like breaking through. It's like you had Dakota Fanning in this, and Abigail Breslin in Little Miss Sunshine. Within a couple of years of each other, and both instant stars. As soon as they appeared, they're so good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And then you have literally for like 2 lines. Is it Morgan Freeman doing the narration at the beginning and the end? Like, oh, God.
Yeah, which I did
stop with your narration. No. That's only there so that you have, because the opening kind of section of War of the Worlds is so famous, with the slowly but surely drawing their plans against us. That's the reason that you have it, essentially. At the end, it's just like...
This could have been a text crawl, couldn't it?
Yes. It's just... Again, there are some things I like, and everything looks good, and it's all very well shot, and it's all beautiful, and big devastation. It just doesn't have any... There's nothing at the core of it enough.
It's decent enough, but compared to Spielberg's usual kind of quality, it's middling.
It's you know how everyone complains now that movies are just mindless, dumb explosions? I think this is the nearest you've got to mindless, dumb explosions. It's better than most of the mindless dumb explosion movies out there, but it's still very close to just falling into there's not much here. And
I don't really like
upsetting.
it at all. Yeah, it's too.
The 53 version is so much better.
Tom Cruise and Dakota Fanning, like, I think she's good. I think Tom Cruise is like, he's Tom Cruise. He's doing a decent job, but just it is just moving from set piece to set piece with 2 to 3 characters, and like it's unfair because this came out in 2005, but I've seen this so many times. I'm watching this for the first time now, and I'm like, okay, and cool.
And it's a shame. And I will also say that I am probably one of the rare people that actually does like Tom Cruise as an actor. I say one of the rare people that's kind of, into films and not just like the average punter. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does
now that Mission Impossible's ended, because I want to see him get back to doing more interesting stuff again, really. I want Magnolia era Tom Cruise back.
Learning to, I don't know, fly a rocket or something along those lines because he can. He just gets bored and he's just like, okay, I'm going to learn how to do this.
I want the smarmy guy from the beginning of A Few Good Men, and I want the cocky, maverick, and like, I just play other people besides the same guy over and over again.
Yeah. And I mean, he does well as Ethan Hunt, because essentially Ethan Hunt isn't a character, so he doesn't have to do anything. Yeah. Ethan Hunt is a plot point. He is a sci-fi. We've discussed this before. But here he's just... It's not that his performance is bad, it's just he's the wrong person for the role. But it's Spielberg's War of the Worlds. It's not an awful movie. And if somebody puts it on, it's going to be, this is mildly entertaining, but it's not. It doesn't grab you in the way the War of the Worlds should do, which is a shame. And that is the last time he went to Aliens until a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, it's too bad I didn't pick E.T. so we could do just Aliens, but whatever. That's it for this week's episode talking about Spielberg sci-fi. We'll be back next week with something else. Until then, guys, where can people find you?
You can find me at SSP Thinks Film and at the Second Cut Pod Substack, where I've got a double review of Normal and The Christophers coming out soon, and shortly after that I'll have my review of The Mandalorian and Grogu as well. So look out for those up on the Substack anytime.
You mean The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda, right? Okay. Sorry, I didn't know who Grogu was.
Really, the title should be reversed, where it should be Grogu and the Mandalorian, because he's definitely the main character.
Yes. Hopefully you don't find me anywhere, but if you do, I am Coach's Metal in those places. Haven't got anything on the Substack at the moment, but I did just go to see both Obsession and Passenger today, so maybe they'll be up by the time this episode goes out.
And you can find me at Jacob Film Guy. I will fight Sam and say it is The Mandalorian and Grogu, and they're just both equal, and it's not one over the other. Anyway, that's it.
So should it be Mandalorian X Grogu?
Oh, yeah, sure. I forgot. Email us at secondcutpod. Find us at secondcutpod at gmail.com. Sorry, that's backwards. That's the email, though. That's all. Goodbye.
See ya.
Adios.